That's right. We're waiting for a ship to come in today, guys. So, for today's lesson, I'm going to do a reader's theater. I absolutely love a reader's theater, and I love it, one, because it is fun, two, because I think there's a lot of room for extension activities growth, and I think it also offers up a good bit of differentiation within the activity. So, let me begin by saying that my anchor text is one of the books from the Seeker series, The Melting Sea, and it tells the stories of these polar bears who are going through the polar region that is melting away, and they're on a search for food. And I'm tying all this into a science lesson on the polar region and the food web. And but for today's lesson, my reader's theater, the reading I am going to do is going to be from my one of the additional texts. This is going to be my One Notch Higher. This is according to the AR book finder, this is on a 6th grade level, and it is The Iceberg Hermit, which I feel is I'm an old guy, and I still absolutely just love the story this tells. It's a story of adventure and survival, and I mentioned in the last video is really neat because towards the at the end of the book, it kind of alludes to the fact that it could very well possibly be a true story, and even to this day I like to believe that it may be. So, without further ado, let me explain to you my how I would do reader's theater. So, for me, reader's theater, I think, goes a little better towards the tail end of, say, your book reading, because I like for the kids to kind of, and after a certain reading, I think they should definitely read through whatever it is they're going to perform first, and then put together their whole production of the theater. And but towards the end of the book, that way they can kind of get a feeling for the different character traits and feelings and personalities, because the goal of reader's theater is fluency. But what is fluency? What are we looking for? We want to look for the proper cadence and rhythm of reading. We're looking for the prosody, and even more so, we're looking for his students to read with different emotions and to sell the different character traits and personalities of the characters that they'll be reading for or portraying within their reader's theater. So let's see, what do I do next? So the Lorax is sitting right here next to me, so I'm not going to script out the entire part that I will read, but this is a good example. So, I'm sorry, the greatest thing about reader's theater, what's the greatest thing about reader's theater? You read, you write, you listen, you speak, and I'm going to take it one notch further, is you type. That's a huge thing these days. I know it's a huge debate right now that the 3rd graders writing assessment is typed. Like, what are you really assessing, right? But nonetheless, that's where we are going to. So even after the students read through, they can write up their script, write through their text. I think it's really good that they go through and they type. Not only can they type, but they get into into Word, and they can play with the fonts, the size of the fonts, the color of the fonts, and actually type up a good script, because in the book it'll say, about the caribou, Alan asked. Obviously, if you're performing a theater, you're not going to have to say, Alan asked. Part of my differentiation for this lesson, I think is really good, are your struggling readers, or the ones who are really scared, for lack of a better word, to read in front of a class. I think they could give them the job of being the narrator. You don't have to read with that much emotion for the narrator. The narrator is quite monotone. So if all you're looking for is a good rhythm and cadence to their reading, I think that's a great place for them. And even a narrator, I don't think, has to necessarily be front and center of the class. They can, say, sit in their desk and kind of in the shadows, and they're still reading aloud in front of their class, but the spotlight isn't, say, on them. So I think that's really good. And then the extension activities I mentioned is you can absolutely take reading theater, I think, to wherever you want to take it. You can run into art projects, come up with costumes. You can turn this into an entire production to where you allow the kids to technology. Come on, they can film it, they can produce it, they can perform it in front of the morning assembly at school. Depending, however far you want to do, you can put on a whole stage production. You're looking at teamwork, which I absolutely just love. small groups and teamwork within a classroom for the simple life lesson that you have to learn, one, to work with each other and accept and work with opposing viewpoints. I think that's just a great life lesson, something I'll always do in my class. So Reader's Theater, like I said, what I would certainly, after say they read that text set, make sure that they're at least familiar with it, comfortable about it. You discuss it, because I always like to do, you know, a pre-reading vocabulary check to where they understand the words. That way they're more fluent while they're reading through it. And they read through it. You work on a lot of discussions myself while reading, discussion afterwards, whole group, and then you break off into small groups is how I would do this, the reading theater. And then everybody has a job, yet everyone does one of those jobs. So you've read already. You're going to read aloud in front of your classroom. Very intimidating for a lot of students. Take that intimidation away with a lot of practice. Let them practice within their group and then let them do it in front of the class. They're writing. They're going to have to write a script. Say here, you know, that you can give someone the job of holding up the script cards or well, I did the post-it board. You know, I'd probably use a Promethean board in the classroom. But, you know, different colors for the different characters. This here is, although the beginning example looks as though the narrator has a lot to read, the narrator in this case has the smaller amount to read. And like I said again, he can read that very monotone and still achieve his character of being a narrator, which I think are better for your lower level or your struggling kids, just to get them reading aloud. And so they're reading, they're writing, they're speaking, and they're listening. They're going to have to listen. Let the kids perform different parts of the story and go back and maybe ask the class different questions and everything. The possibilities are endless. It's up to you as a teacher with your creativity how far you want to take it or how not far you want to take it. If it's just simple, read this excerpt in front of class, you can do that as well. So I think that's pretty much my explanation of how I would do it, how much I like it, the possibilities for extension, differentiation. I love all of that, and so I guess, you know, y'all perform this, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and give y'all a show. I dressed up in my little polar bear tie. I'll give y'all a little backstory real quick. So, because I'm spoiler alert, if you ever read this story, I'm going to spoil most of it for you. The story is a story of this, I believe he's Norwegian guy. Alan gets shipwrecked. He's the only surviving member, and he spends 7 years on the ice. He's taken in by a family of Eskimos, but he just yearns to go back to his homeland and be with his own people. And in the process, he adopted and trained a polar bear, which is one of his best friends. He hangs out together, and he gains a lot of knowledge of the polar region as well, which would all be a discussion within our science lesson. That's where it alludes to it being a true story. It wasn't until years later that they go back and they kind of go over the account of Alan's story, and they're saying the only way that he could have that knowledge of how the polar region works and changes from year to year is if he was actually there, because it wasn't common knowledge at the time that he come back and told his story in the late 1700s. So so that's kind of the backstory there. I'm going to do characters, and I think it's good that, you know, that the kids really get into it and sell it, because again, we're working on fluency, which isn't just reading aloud or reading smoothly. You want them to read with the proper prosody and rhythm, cadence, and it's a theater. Sell the characters. Try to read it in goofy, funny voices. Wear a different hat. You don't have to go all out and do a costume, but wear a different hat or something to get into character, I think, is really good. So, although I'm sure this is not what whalers wore in the late 1700s, this is going to be Alan. He's our main character, but he was on a whaling ship, so this is going to be his hat and his character. I'm not really sure what the Eskimos wear these days, but this is going to be my Eskimo hat to keep you nice and warm, I'm sure. So that'll be my Eskimo hat, and the Eskimo that he'll be speaking to is Intuk is what I'm pronouncing that as. They have some pretty difficult words as far as Eskimo names go. And then this is my big hi-hat, but this is going to be my narrator because he's just, he necessarily doesn't have a character, he's just one of the students. So this is going to be my student hat narrator that I will wear there. I got my fancy polar bear tie on, trying to get into the mood of, you know, the Iceberg Hermit, great story. And this is my one notch higher 6th grade level book as part of my my reading club. And so it begins off. So, brother, what does Intuk say about the caribou? There were no signs of caribou. And so they saw nothing strange? Arik ignored the question. He sat up, took out his short sled knife, and started to carve a small piece of wood. Soon, the head of a bear began to take shape. Alan waited. Arik would speak when he was ready. Finally, Arik said, "You still want to go back to your own land?" "Yes." "You do not like it with us?" "Well, I want to see my own people again." "You will not take a wife from among us?" "No. There is a woman at home who is promised to me." "Yes." Arik understood that. In the tribe, marriages were sometimes arranged many years in advance, and children as young as 4 or 5 were often promised to each other in marriage by their parents. This is where it gets pretty intense, guys. They saw large boats. "Boats? Sailing ships? How many?" Arik put up one hand and spread his fingers. Now the kids don't really have to read that, you know. If they're gonna act it out, they can just kind of act it out. But that's how the freedom, wherever you want to take it. 5 sailing ships. 5 sailing ships? Part of a whaling fleet on its way home? And even if he missed the 5 ships, surely there would be others. But I have a hard way to find the route and hunters took. A hard time to find the route that the hunters took. That was not very fluent. Some of us did not want to tell you about the ships. You know you're like a brother to me. You know you're like a brother to me. And our family will miss you. We do not want to see you leave. Others said you might guide us to another ship trapped in the ice. They said that your spirit gift, as Intuk's gift is hunting, and Otaz is sealing, and Insunux is curing sickness. Some said that you might take a woman from the tribe and start a family. As you know, that we are short of men, and we have too many women. But you decided to tell me? Yes, Herod and Intuk said you should leave and go back to your own people. Intuk said that someday soon you would learn how to find the ships by yourself, and then you would bring your people back to us to punish us for keeping you here. No, I would not do that. But Intuk has never liked me. Intuk is a great hunter, but because of his face, he thinks that people do not like him, so he does not like people. Alan thought of the fortune teller. Was Intuk his dark enemy with the scarred face? How did his face get so scarred? That's what I'm looking for when the students are reading aloud fluently. If they have a question mark, read it with that little inflection at the end. You know, make it sound like a question. If it has an exclamation point, he was so excited. What? 5 ships? They came in? You want the students to read like that. They have to sell it. They have to show some of the emotion. And I think that's I think that's the cool thing about Reader's Theater is that not only are they reading aloud and reading fluently, but they get to take it one notch higher and really get into the character and sell that. And I think that shows a lot. If I can kind of roll over into the comprehension end, they're able to read it fluently, but in order to sell the character and their personality, I think they have to have a full comprehension of, one, not only the character and their traits, but what exactly is going on in the story. You know, is Alan? Do they understand that the main character is really excited to have found those ships coming in so close to where he can go back home? They understand that, hey, he spent 7 years in the ice, not being at home. He is super excited, so they should read with that excitement and read with those expressions. So, where was that? How did his face get so scarred? See, they got to read it like that. It happened one winter when he was a baby, and there were hungry times. His mother lay on the sleeping bench in her igloo. She was so weak from hunger, she could hardly move. Intuk was inside the hood of her jacket. A starving dog came into the igloo, dragged Intuk out of the jacket, and began to eat him. His mother spilled hot oil from the lamp on the dog's eyes, but Intuk was already bitten and missing half of a cheek. So that's why Intuk beats the dog so much? Yes. You know too that Herod said that the sea spirit would keep seals away from us if we made you stay. Then I can leave. Yes, they're making ready a kayak just for you. And so there you go, you know. I mean, I know I'm trying to get silly, you know, and I'm trying to kind of show you what the students might do or look like. The students will surprise the mess out of you. They probably make that look a whole lot better than I would. But again, I love reading theater, not only for the fact that they're reading aloud in front of students, but the fact that you're hitting on everything. Like I said, it alludes to the comprehension aspect. Are they able to read fluently? Well, have me or us as teachers done a good enough job in teaching all the vocabulary, the unknown words, the structure of the story to where they can read it fluently and understand what's going on? And Reader's Theater, again, you know, you're reading, you're writing, you're speaking, you're listening, you're typing. Don't forget that. Let the students get on there. They have to practice typing. You'd be amazed how many of them still struggle in 5th, 6th, 7th grade typing. Let them get on. Don't let them just type it out, but let them go through. They're not playing. They're exploring. They're learning. Let them change the font size. Let them change the color of the words, and get some of that technology into it. Again, if you want to take it to the next level, let them do a production. You know, let them film it. Even if it's just for their own class, let them film it and put on a show for their own class. You don't have to get the entire school involved, although me personally, I think that'd be even cooler, you know. Hey, have the kids attach their video to an email and send it out to teachers and say, hey, if you'd like to share this with your class, you can. That way they're getting more technology into it, and yet you're not disrupting the entire school with it. They're writing here. Hey, you can practice on handwriting alone, you know. You're performing a Reader's Theater. They're going to have a conversation. Practice your punctuation, you know. I mean, you're looking here at your parentheses, and, you know, read with the affliction of the proper period, question mark, exclamation point, punctuation. And so you're practicing all of that as well. Reading, writing, speaking, listening, get the technology into it, have fun with it, take it wherever you want. Remember the students who are just absolutely, you have to put yourself back in these students' shoes, and remember how scary it was as a struggling reader to read in front of people. Put them on the side. Let them be the narrator. Let them be a part of it, but take away the scariness of having all the eyes looking at them. A narrator can turn their back to the audience. A narrator can sit in the back of the class in his desk, and as long as he's reading aloud with the proper prosody that you're looking for, I think the goal is achieved there. Don't add in the extra stress and everything, having forcing them to go into the front of the class. That's just my personal view, thoughts on it. I think I've gone over it all. Until next time, I'll go ahead and leave y'all here with this great song because Alan is waiting for his shit to come in. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Mr. Mike in his baby room trying to teach y'all like he's in a classroom whose floors are getting waxed. 411, keep up the hard work. It's summertime. Happy 4th of July. Now, I'll see y'all before the 4th of July. But, deuces.